Everyone. We still have people joining, so I'm going to wait another minute before we get started. Okay, still looks like some people are joining, but it's slowing down a little bit. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome to the January 2024 Business and Finance meeting. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Ginger Velazquez, and I'm the Executive Director for Business and Finance in the Office of the CFO. And before we get started, just a few quick items. First, we have had a change in the agenda as Carrie Canaday isn't available today, so we will not have a digital mailroom update, but we will have one at our next meeting. That project has not started yet, so I think we're good to wait until the next meeting. Also, you have all been placed on mute, so please type any questions you may have into the chat. And remember, those chat questions go to everyone. We do have a team that's reviewing the questions as they come in, and we will try to get to them all. But if time constrains us, we will be sure to review any unanswered questions after the meeting ends, and we will follow up on those as well. Also, we will again be recording our meetings and emailing each of you a link to the recording. So if you have additional questions that come up afterwards and you need to review a segment of this meeting, or if you need presenter contact information, you will have all of that as well. And finally, always feel free to reach out to me and my staff whenever you have questions or comments or ideas. Bernadette Rossmore and Stacy Balmas are here to serve you and assist in resolving your issues. And you will find our contact information on the last slide of the presentation, so you can reference it at any time. So we have a very busy agenda today. We are going to forego any specific announcements and get right into the presentations. And our first presentation today will be from Stacy Balmas from the Business and Finance Policy Office with policy updates. Stacy?
Yeah, and I'm actually going to present at the end, if that's okay, to give the headquarters folks a little bit more time. And I know one of the presenters has to jump off to run to another meeting, so I'm happy to be passed right now.
Thanks, Stacy. So let's see, Jamie on the call?
Yep.
Is she starting the, okay.
Yep, I'm starting it.
Jamie, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So we wanted to update you on changes to policy related to travel. And we've had a work group working on this for several months in really response to the change in our work environment that we don't anticipate is going to go away since the pandemic. So I'm going to be presenting today with Darren Strader from Payables. So he'll be answering any of the processing questions for you, but we have other expertise on the call as well if you have other questions. So if you go to the next slide. So we're going to talk about the policy update team that worked on this, why we're making these updates, and then how you're going to process those changes, and then answer any questions that you might have. And you may have a lot more questions than what we thought of, that we have some FAQs that we'll share with you. So here is a list of the update team. So you can see there's representation from each of the universities, payroll and benefits, HR, business and finance, the payables office, legal counsel. So we tried to get quite a robust team of stakeholders that could review this and make sure that we were thinking of everything that needed to be updated based on our new work arrangements as we see going forward in our new hybrid environment. So the main update is that units are now going to have the option to reimburse fully remote employees for mandated travel that the department has determined to be required. It will be at the option and the discretion of the unit. So the unit does not have to, since working fully remote is still a privilege and not an entitlement or right of the employee. Unit does have to approve that and be agreeable to allow an employee to be fully remote. But if an individual is, and this is not for hybrid employees or in-office employees, but if you're fully remote, the unit can now reimburse for you to travel to one of the universities, which would mean that your home base or your campus location will now become your home in order for that to occur. These payments will be sent via Chrome River, and so it'll be something that Darren will cover here in just a moment about how you would process these. So as I mentioned, the reason for this update, as we know, we have gone to a very different work environment than what we had pre-2020. And we know that a lot of units have been given flexibility to determine the best arrangements for their staff. And we have more employees that are now hybrid or fully remote. And so we needed a way for our fully remote employees to be able to be reimbursed for travel if the unit requests them to be at something on campus. It's really kind of going to be our new normal. And so we felt that the policy needed to be updated for that reason. And the benefits, again, we think this will help with recruitment and retention. It continues to allow that flexibility, but then also provide that funding for the employee if they do have to travel. We are keeping the decision-making at the local level, so within the unit, it will be at their discretion. However, they need to make sure that they are consistent across their unit and not treating individuals different than others when they're making those decisions. Should be a reduced cost to the employee. Obviously, there are a lot of benefits to working from home in terms of gas prices and car maintenance and other things. So it'll be another recruitment and retention tool. And then it will require departments to really think about the best method for having meetings, whether they're in person, whether they're hybrid, do those work? So that they can make sure that all staff feel like they are engaging in those meetings and conversations and feel like they have equal opportunity to share and contribute. So now I'm actually going to turn it over to Darren that will talk about the mechanics of how to process these.
Thanks, Jamie. As Jamie mentioned before, reimbursements for this for remote workers can now be reimbursed through the Chrome River system. And to do that, it's just like any other expense report. You would select the T-card and employee reimbursement button and continue to work on through the expense report like you would normally. There's one new addition though. Users will be required to answer the work category question from a drop-down box in Chrome River to flag yourself as either 100% in the office, a hybrid mix of in-office, out-of-office, or 100% remote. And that helps us determine whether or not you can be eligible for reimbursement. So the next slide will show you what that work category box looks like. So as you're processing a reimbursement and you're working down through all the questions that it asked about what type of reimbursement this is to get you to the right spot, you need to pick one of these. 100% in office, hybrid, or 100% remote. And that's a new field that will be going in to effect in Chrome River and will be available from the first day of this new policy when it starts. I don't think we've talked about that yet. Okay, one more slide for me, I think. Oh, here it goes. We're going to, the policy is planning on being effective March 1st, 2024. Okay, it's an important date because this policy only applies to travel that starts on March 1st going forward and will not apply to any travel backwards. Nothing will be calculated retroactively. So you need to keep that in mind. This starts on March 1st going forward. Okay.
Darren, before we go to my next
Okay.
slide, there was a question that maybe you want to answer. Can units pay for the travel or is it only employee reimbursement?
Can units pay for the travel or is it only?
Meaning, can they use their T card and still
Well,
pay?
yes, they could use their T card if travel needs to be arranged. And I think, let's see, did Jim Martini answer this one? No, that's John Meyer. I'm sorry. Yes, they can do that. Travel could be arranged with a T card, with a travel arranger in the department, if you need that. Yes, correct. And there's another question. If we have an office team, same thing. Same difference. Now, things like mileage, that'll have to be taken care of individually by employee. If there's any per diem, for instance, that would have to be done on an ER specific to the person that's applying to be reimbursed for per diem. But if you needed ticketed travel, for instance, or a hotel room when they got here, if they were going to stay for a few days, then yes, you could use your T card.
Okay.
All right. I think
So
there's
some of the FAQs that we anticipated, there might be that we can answer. If we go to the next slide. So the first one, what about hybrid or in-person employees? And again, this revision to the policy is to apply to only individuals who are fully remote. So it is not meant to now change to where you can start reimbursing an employee for driving from home into the office when they're a hybrid employee. It's really meant for those individuals that are only working from home full time and from periodically will be coming in for a meeting or something that you could then reimburse them. The next one, what about employees with second or third residences? And this is the primary location where the employee lives for really 60 or more consecutive days. So where do they spend most of their time is where the employee is typically going to be considered a resident for tax purposes. So that will be their primary location. So if an individual has a home here in Illinois and a summer home somewhere, and they go to that summer home periodically, likely their home in Illinois is going to be their primary location. So only one place can be the primary location and considered their home base for reimbursement purposes. Next one is, which is considered my headquarters if I'm fully remote, my home or my campus location? Again, the unit can determine that the employee's home is their base quarter, their headquarters, if they are fully remote. If they are hybrid, again, it would still have to be one of the campuses. Next one, are we required to pay travel expenses for required in-person meetings if a fully remote employee lives within a drivable commuting distance? I think the key word here on this one is required. And no, units will not be required to pay travel expenses for in-person meetings for fully remote employees. It will be up to the unit to determine that. But again, the important thing is that the unit is consistent to avoid any concerns about unequal treatment or reimbursement for employees. So if you have multiple employees that are fully remote, you should consider making sure that you have the same standards and guidelines, which I would put in writing to those employees of what's going to be provided to them should they be required to come into the office. But again, it's not required. It will be up to the unit. And then, are we required to pay travel expenses for required in-person meetings for fully remote employees who live out of state? Really, same answer applies. So it's whether you're fully remote in-state or out of state, up to the department. But again, be consistent. And you might have one set of kind of guidelines if you're out of state, which would probably require flying, as opposed to an individual who might be in-state and not living that far. Just make sure that you're treating all individuals in the same situations consistently. But again, it is up to the unit to determine whether or not they are going to pay that, since providing somebody the ability to be fully remote is up to the unit. Looks like those were our kind of planned FAQs, but some other questions have come in and we'll see who's the best person to answer these. So I think Darren, some of these might be for you. First one, with the change in the headquarters designation impact iBuy shipping addresses as well? Will the change?
I don't know that one with the iBuy shipping address.
Is there anybody on from?
Yeah, was there anybody on?
That could answer that?
And if not, we can follow up after this call.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is Janelle from UIC Procurement. I'm sorry. The question again, I couldn't hear.
Will the change in the headquarter designation impact, meaning if you are changed to be your home address is your headquarters? will that impact iBuy shipping addresses as well?
That is a question Aaron Rosenthal probably can answer for us. If he's not on, I
Oh,
will.
no, thanks,
make sure-
Sunil. I'm here. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
okay, okay, thank you.
Yeah, there already is precedent for when individuals who are working from home have a compelling operational need that is in fact approved by their unit to have specific supplies, for example, shipped to their home address. To do so does specifically require working with purchasing to establish a new ship to address of their home and is subject to the approval by the underlying unit as well.
Thanks, Aaron. T cards can arrange travel, but units will be responsible to ensure that okay, sorry, that's a statement there, not a question. Would 100% remote receive mileage and per diem? And is anybody from,
I think they would if they're 100% remote. Again, it all drills down to your consistency warning, Jamie, that you've
yeah,
Made
and it would
that-
depend on if it's overnight, since per
Exactly,
diem is-
exactly. So if it's warranted, yes, if they had to come for a couple of days from Michigan where they live, yeah, they would get per diem and they would probably get mileage for having driven down here. So, yes.
Yeah, so you still have to follow the per diem policy
Right.
guidelines as well. And then does the unit need to find the headquarter as the employee's home in Herfy, the HR front end? And yes, you need to contact your HR office if somebody is changing from being in office or hybrid to being fully remote, so we can make sure that is designated correctly in Banner. Other questions? Is there a minimum mileage to qualify for reimbursement? For example, would they have to live over 2 miles or more? This was actually a very large discussion we had with our work group in trying to define, should we establish what that amount might be, how far it would be to travel. And so ultimately we decided that it would be up to the unit and something that is reasonable. So for example, if somebody does only live in the same town and they're fully remote for whatever reason, then you probably shouldn't be reimbursing them. But if somebody is an hour or 2 hours away, then that might be a time when, yes, it would be reimbursable. So we're not setting that mileage limit because circumstances can be different depending on your department and the need. So we didn't set that right now. And I welcome anyone else from our work group if you want to jump in.
Right. And Tiffany asked about parking expenses. Are they reimbursable? Yes, they are. The department deems so, but they are an expense that's normally reimbursed if someone was in travel status.
This is Jim, and that's exactly right, Darren. If a person has been designated to be 100% remote and the department has agreed that a trip to campus is required, then they're on travel status and eligible for anything that we pay today for someone that's on travel status. I hope that clears some of that up.
And Jim, and Darren and Jamie, just to add on to what Jim said, it's my understanding, so please correct me if I'm wrong, but to Jim's point, yes, they're on travel status, but again, we're looking for the units to set their own policy as to what they are and are not going to pay in those situations. Is that correct?
I believe you're correct, Ginger.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though they're eligible, technically,
Right.
the units need to set their travel policy and reimbursement policies. Okay, thank you.
And they also need to keep, this is Terry Thompson, they also need to keep in mind that this could create additional taxable income to the employee if the work arrangement is not really set for the convenience of the employer. If they have access to space to work on campus, then the reimbursement may be taxable to them.
Thanks, Terry.
Sure.
Any other questions? If you think of more, once we've hung up, please feel free to email us. And like Darren said, this policy will go into effect soon, but there's still a little bit of time if you have need some clarification on it as well.
And I just want to add one thing to what Ginger said. Yes, we want departments to sort of set their own policies, but whatever they choose to reimburse for, you still have to follow the appropriate business and finance policy that governs that particular thing.
I think we kind of always refer to it as you can be more restrictive in what you can allow or will allow, but you can't be less. So our travel policies are at the bare minimum, and you can reimburse for less per mile if you choose to, but again, you need to be consistent, but you can't charge more than what's posted. So you need to keep that in mind as well.
And Darren, there's another question regarding T-card.
Will the work status question come up on all transactions that start as a T-card employee reimbursement?
Darren,
Yes.
I can
Go.
answer that. This is Melissa. Yes.
Hi, Melissa. Yeah.
That question will display on the T-card employee reimbursement selection, but it will not display for a cash advance or a P-card expense report in Chrome River.
And I think Denise was referring back to the new field that been added that we showed. Okay, she's good with it.
Okay, well, thank you for the time today to present, and let us know if you have any other questions.
Thanks, everyone. You can definitely tell that this one took a village by all of the people trying to answer all of the questions. So thanks to everyone for the presentations and for being here to answer the questions. We appreciate that. Oh, it looks like next steps. Sorry, was someone going to cover that slide?
Oh, sure. So we are giving presentations to the BMGs and advisory groups at each university to also update them on the change and answer any questions. And then again, then going through the process for the policy to go live March 1st, which communications will come out about that as well.
Okay, I think then, Stacy, but before we move on to Aaron Carter, did you have some additional policy updates? Stacy, you're muted if you're talking.
Yeah, you'd think I'd be good at this by now. So yeah, I do have some. So the updates to the business meals, 8.1.1, we are wrapping up on that, and we will be doing a presentation similar to what we did today for headquarters to everybody to just explain the changes and give everyone the opportunity to ask questions before we go live with the updates to that policy. And then as part of the annual policy review, where we're just taking a look at the policies as they are now and making any updates that may need to be made. We are hopefully getting close to the end for policy number 2 on custodial funds, policy number 13 on accounting, with a new policy that's going to be added to that on enrollment and key deposits. So that one will be going out for open comment so that you can comment on any part of section 13, as well as the new section, which is going to be added to the end. And then we will update section 15 on travel after we have completed all of the presentations on the new headquarters commuting policy, and that goes into effect. So that will be updated sometime in March. And if, again, my normal spiel, if anyone has seen anything weird with policy or you think a policy needs to be added or updated, never hesitate to reach out to me. I've added my email address to the notes specific to the headquarters policy, but for any policy issues, concerns, questions you have, never hesitate to send them my way. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Stacy. So next we will hear, and I cannot believe we are right on schedule. So this is the wonderful. And we will next hear from Aaron Carter with updates from the Office of Procurement Services. Aaron?
Hey, thanks, Ginger, and Happy New Year to all on the call. I have several units represented after me today. They're going to touch on various topics. But I guess what I would share is there's a lot coming from the Office of Procurement Services in terms of the policy work that we're doing with Stacy, the changes that you'll see through the card programs. And then I know Ginger said that you won't have a source to pay update today, really, but we're getting ready to kick off the next phase of that, which hopefully will kind of snowball into more efficient processing and easier on your vendors and those you engage with. So a lot of big stuff coming. I don't have a direct or large announcement today, but a lot of stuff's going on, and a lot of it has to do with a lot of you that have provided input on those areas. So I know several others are following me that'll talk for my units, but we're really excited about the service we're going to provide in 24. So appreciate the time as always to address you. Always happy to take any questions, whether it be through the chat today or individually. So thank you for your time. Have a great afternoon today.
Thanks, Aaron. So next up, we will have a Chrome River update from Melissa Plotner from University Payables. Melissa?
Good afternoon. Let me steal the screen here quickly. Okay, I think we've got it. So as Aaron said, we do have a lot of things on the horizon coming. And so I'm going to touch quickly on the Chrome River information. So just a reminder that our Chrome River standard reports, that option will be decommissioned as of the end of March, which is quickly approaching. I know we've been saying this for a couple months now, but the data warehouse teams have been extremely busy helping to create various templates that are available in the data warehouse, trying to recreate some of those standard report options that Chrome River currently offers. They continue to receive requests from units about different data fields, so those things are being updated frequently and added. So I would encourage you to go out and look at some of those templates and start transitioning into that reporting warehouse. I have evaluated the templates that are out there, but I'm not a frequent user of those. So it's really going to take the input from the user community, the units, to take a look and say, I wish we had this field, or I wish we had this information. We do acquire a lot of data from Chrome River, and not all of it has been put into the warehouse yet. So if you don't see something, don't be discouraged. Just contact Jerry Myers or the data warehouse staff, and they are great to see if they have that somewhere, and then put that into a change request to bring that information into the warehouse. So a couple of things that happened. I know there were some meetings that got postponed in December. I'm a little late on updating this topic, but we did implement a rule in Chrome River regarding who could be assigned as a vacation delegate. And so our internal audit review identified some situations where individuals were able to approve their own expense report by using the vacation delegate feature. So the rule that has been turned on does not allow you to pick somebody who is in your reporting line. I am happy to discuss with you one-on-one if you're running into instances where this is hindering you conducting business. We can look at some of the structures. We can see what ideas that we can come up with. We've worked with several units already, but hopefully this is a fairly low impact change, but I do want to acknowledge that it was significant for some units that had to address this rule update. So the best news I have to share today, and I really feel like I should let Aaron share some of this. He was instrumental in negotiating some changes to the state legislation that is moving the university to the GSA rates. This will become effective February 1st, so this Thursday. It is going to impact your meal per diems. It's also going to be reflected in any sort of the lodging allowances that are applied for the various locations of stay. The entry of your dates of travel are going to be critical, because if you travel prior to February 1st, the old rate tables will apply. Beginning February 1st, the new rate tables will apply. if you have travel that spans that date range, if you're traveling this week, you will receive the old rate for per diem for your January days. And then beginning on February 1st, you will begin receiving the new allowance. And so these rates, if you're not familiar with the GSA rate tables, they are set by the government. They're for federal employees. And so these rates vary by city and state. So, you know, if you're traveling to New York, you could expect maybe a higher per diem than if you were traveling to Champaign. So those will fluctuate. Those tables are automatically incorporated into Chrome River. We're going to be taking advantage of how their system was originally designed. They had to customize our per diem rates for the state of Illinois when we implemented. So we're really moving to how that system is built to function. And so that is all the information I have for you today, unless we have any questions that have come up in the chat.
One just did come up.
I have a conference in downtown Chicago coming up. Will I be eligible to use the GSA rate table for meals and parking? So if you're the same rules, travel rules apply that they discussed in the headquarters policy. So in order to receive per diem, you have to have an overnight stay. So as long as you have an overnight stay and it's after February 1st, yes, you would be eligible for the GSA rate table in Chrome River. And parking would continue to be reimbursed as the actual expense with the receipt that you would present for that item. Are there any other questions? All right, if not, I will turn the stage back over to Ginger. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Melissa. Great updates and good news for sure. So next we will hear from Amanda Schleper, also from University Payables, with a card services update.
Thank you. I'm going to follow on Melissa's good news here and give you all a positive update to 7.6, the university's P card policy. We have recently removed the optional role for approving and disapproving transactions within the 3 business days of reconciliation as a charge code reviewer. So the 25 days still does apply, but there was this little additional policy that stated the charge code reviewer had 3 days to get that done. So we have gotten rid of that. So that is one less thing to worry about when reconciling and getting everything moved around in Chrome River. And then the second part of my discussion today is it is recertification time. We are in the middle of the P card recertification and the DCM recertification. And if you get these slides, I do have 2 announcement links in here that does take you to the links for those 2 different recertifications. I do understand the DCM doesn't apply to everybody. So if you've been receiving those notifications, be sure that you do that. And also the P card, that only applies to those with the P card roll holders. So, so be sure that you get that done by the end of February. Both are due the same day, February 29th. And we're watching numbers and everything. So the more that gets done sooner, it makes me even happier. So thank you. And that's all I have. I'll turn it back over to Ginger. Thank you very much.
So Amanda, one question in the chat, is there a report that will tell us who has recertified on our campus?
You know what? I do not have that name. We did have that at one time. I apologize for not knowing if that is still available or not, but I will get that out to you for sure.
Okay.
So I can actually answer that, Amanda. So we sent out communications back in the fall to all DCMs and all DCM delegates about the application that ran those old reports being decommissioned and then moving all of those reports to Ability LMS. So that is where the reports live today. There is some required training you have to take, and you have to work with your USC to get that access. But all of those reports are available to everyone there. And then you can reach out to us at that shared services email address I just put in the chat if you need help getting access to those reports.
Thank you so much. I knew it had changed a little bit. I didn't have it off the top of my head, so thank you so much.
And Amanda, there's another question about the 25-day report. Can you see the chat? If not, I can read it to you.
I am looking at it right now. Thank
Okay.
you. That is, we're not going to discuss that today. If that's okay, we're going to focus on this. There are some discussions that we are having right now for the 25-day report, but that is something separate from this conversation today. And I was hired on 12/1 or 12/10. Will I need to recertify since? No, the recertification goes back to October. So if you've taken it anywhere from October, November, December, you are good to go. But if you do have additional questions, if you need to double check on anything, I would encourage you to reach out to Card Services and they can look anything up for you as well. That had to turn. If you've taken the training within this time period, you should go. All right, I think that answers everything. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amanda. And thanks, Derek, for that information as well. And now we will hear from Jeff Weaver with an equipment management update. Jeff?
Thanks, Ginger, and I hope you're seeing my screen.
Yes.
With my PowerPoint? Awesome. Thanks for your time today and attention. Happy New Year. I want to introduce myself. I am Jeff Weaver, Senior Director in Property Accounting. Since I'm not here monthly, thought I would share a little bit more information about our property accounting office. We do reside within University Accounting and Financial Reporting, where we do a number of services for the entire university, from the audit and the financial statements. My duties primarily rely within equipment management, and my office works to work with and assist units with your equipment management. So happy to be here today and to present some updates and hope to share some good news and improved information systems with you guys also. Our agenda today, I'm going to talk briefly about our new FabWeb Update Existing Assets functionality that'll be released very soon. Want to talk about where we're at with the equipment threshold change that occurred last year. Want to talk about training. We have a new biennial inventory certificate course and some new instructor-led courses out there. And want to really have a few bullets to talk to seek your assistance and maybe provide some additional guidance about reviewing your unit equipment records, and to talk about trade-ins of equipment and securing scrap and surplus items. So I'm going to start with that update to existing assets. This is brand new functionality that's going to be released in FabWeb. We're excited about this. The units who have tested this are excited about it. The basic change is that the old functionality really gave you one window to key in your current university PTAG number, and you would update items one at a time. The new functionality is going to work more like the biennial inventory system for folks who are aware of that, where you can select and view your full inventory list by chart and org, and it'll recognize your permissions and what chart and orgs you have to give you that selection. You can still search and update items individually if you so desire. That functionality is still out there if you like the old school way. But this new functionality will also give you a way to mass update multiple items at once. And I know the folks who've done this are pretty excited about it to save a little time. One aspect of this is there won't be any saves allowed in FabWeb updates. The old system allowed you to save an update and it locked the record in Banner and in FabWeb. And that was problematic systematically, as we didn't really have a process to ensure those locks were removed and people unlocked those records. So now there's no locking, and we hope that'll help the units downstream not have locked records as they go to dispose of those records or transfer them or update them later in their life cycle. So when is this coming out? It should be really hoping for this Thursday, February 1st, is our plan to release that functionality into production. Teaser announcements have already been sent directly to the FabWeb unit reps who will use this functionality. And when we release that this week, we will send those same folks emails directly. There will also be, I think, some other announcements coming out about this, but really asking you all from the business management perspective to sit down, talk with your reports who are assigned these roles, review the functionality and the job aids, make them aware there are the job aids to assist them with this new functionality, and to make sure they can take advantage of those new resources and those new systems. Where are we with the equipment threshold change? For those of you, well, likely many of you were here last year, but we went through the equipment threshold change in April of last year. It's been 9 months. A little bit of the impact to the various folks here. With that threshold change occurring in April, we recognized the UIC needed to complete their certification back in 2023. And so the PTAG retagging wasn't completed in that 23 biennial cycle. So that the PTAG retagging will be required as you complete your 2025 biennial inventories at UIC. And the expectation is that at the time you certify in required by the end of March 2025, you don't have to wait that long. The system opens in July. But by the time you certify in 2025, the expectation is that you have retagged all that equipment, removed the labels off of the non-banner items and made sure all the banner items are appropriately tagged with the full PTAG number. At UIS, that was a little bit different because of the April implementation. UIS and having a later certification date at the end of May was able to take advantage of the threshold change happening last year. And so I think the vast majority, if not everybody at UIS, did do their biennial using the reduced inventory levels from the threshold change. And the expectation was that at UIS, you did all that physical retagging when you completed your 2023 biennial. So if that's news to anybody, you have some still have a chance to go out and clean up your inventory and tagging before the next round of external auditors come in, likely in the May-June timeframe. Relative to that threshold change, again, 9 months have passed. Our office is still seeing units who are account coding equipment purchases using the old dollar amounts. So when that happens, JVs are required to remove those OTAG records that have been created in error. And it's a lot of rework for your unit, the people doing that equipment role, the unit reps in that unit, as well as our office. So we really would like to make sure, really, again, from the business manager perspective, try to communicate to your unit purchasers an awareness of this new threshold change and the appropriate account code range to use based on the value of the item. And again, those are listed here. The 127 account code range is for those non-capitalized items, 2,500 to 4,099. 163 range is for capitalized items that cost $5,000 or more. And again, if you don't meet that 2,500 threshold for the item you're buying, that's really a non-inventoried item. Anything costing between 100 and 2,499 should be account coded to a 126 account code range. So we're excited about our training and online resources. Again, another improvement. We now have, it is live now, the unit contact certificate course. And this is required for everybody in the biennial inventory unit contact role, similar to the unit rep certificate course for FabWeb that went live in, I believe, October 2022. This is going to be similar. The course requires the unit contacts to take and pass this course by the end of April. And I've included here a hyperlink to the email released on that has the links to that course and other information about the timetables. I do recognize that there are changes from cycle to cycle, and we may have some changes in those roles. That's okay. I guess what I ask is if you are a unit rep and you're a current unit rep and you're fairly certain you're going to be doing that in the 2025 cycle, to go ahead and take that training as soon as possible and complete that so that you don't lose your access. For anybody who doesn't take that course and complete it, we will be terminating those roles, and any individuals that need to then get that role will have to complete that certificate course in order for their USD to provide them that access. And hope that's clear. And the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive of less than an hour really reading through that course and just some great summary information to better understand the roles and responsibilities of the unit folks in those roles. We're also working on other instructor-led training. We do have a new FabWeb disposals instructor-led training course available. It was redesigned and is now live and has also received great feedback from users. Much more of a broad training about issues in property and how to complete your FabWeb disposal requests. So we're getting great feedback on that. It's been a great course. So that's live and out there. We also do plan to redesign our FabWeb new acquisitions instructor-led course to go live later in calendar 2024, likely after the fiscal year close, but in this year. And we do also expect to have updates to our biennial inventory training guide prior to the beginning of all those 2025 cycles. And I've listed here the hyperlink to registration where you can see those instructor-led courses and sign up for those. And I did include different links because those are on different sites from the certificate course. So hope that's helpful. I also wanted to present a summary of our FY23 audit. The summary was the results have been poor, with many unfound and untagged items on inventory. We do have a new higher dollar threshold, which means way fewer items on inventory. Just from a historical perspective, the university was at one time up to around 300,000 tracked items. We are now down to around 70,000 tracked items. So quite a reduction and quite a ease of the burden in a way with the increased threshold. So it provides an opportunity to review your record data proactively. And this is why I'm here asking, really appreciate from a business management perspective, to think like the external auditors think. Go out and review your unit records, especially with that new unit functionality. Your unit reps will be able to see all your inventory items and download all those details. You could still do that in Eddy. That report is still out there, but you'll have full access, more visibility to the data. And I think just listed some of the common, areas that are problematic and some things you guys could all do. One is ensure any unfound items during that prior biennial are disposed and are followed up on. There have been some misunderstandings about how to resolve those unfound items and what the biennial system would do. Basically, a lot of the unfound items require that the unit manually dispose of those items, transfer them, or update the records. And so good spot of where you might find some discrepancies in your inventory records. The other items on here are really kind of some of the things the auditors look at and pull their samples by. And so I think using some of the same criteria could really help our audit results. But review your listing for old aged items that are likely no longer in your unit. Probably not a lot of personal laptops or PCs being used that are 10 or 20 years old. Review items assigned to termed employees. Review all your family records to ensure those families are accurate, and really just ensure all those records have current data. So I'm going to switch gears slightly to a couple of topics just to share some concerns. Basically, this first one about equipment trade-ins, I'm not going to try to overspeak my my responsibilities and duties at the university here, because some of this is purchasing and procurement related, but I did want to share concerns about transactions we've seen and what state admin code expects, as well as what's in university policy. So equipment trade-ins, policy and guidance is currently under review currently. I appreciate purchasing offices are helping us look at this in totality, and we'll likely see some changes in policy in the near future, but don't want to presuppose that, but just my expectation. So really just to share some more, trade-ins should be of a like-kind nature only relative to equipment. So, you shouldn't buy an apple versus an orange. That might even be a bad example, sorry. Trade-ins for store credit or supplies is prohibited. Trade-ins must be documented within the purchase documentation to identify the specific equipment items traded in and the vendor's trade-in allowance for that equipment. If we don't have a trade-in allowance from the vendor, we shouldn't really be trading in equipment. Just an FYI, traded in equipment must be removed from inventory. And one thing you may not all know, but that vendor documented trade-in allowance is added back to the cost of the item by property accounting. That is an accounting costing standard that when trade-ins are in there and part of a transaction, that we have to add that value of that trade-in back to that item over the dollars expensed to buy it. And so that's part of the process, why we need to know that. And so really appreciate you guys doing the best you can to document that in your purchase when it occurs. Another recent issue we've had in our office are some recent reports of theft from unsecured building docks. These were reported to be items to be scrapped and surplus, but had been left unsecured at the building dock. That is generally a no-no. Policy requires that units secure that equipment until it's picked up by university representatives. If you and your unit find you have some theft off your dock, that requires reporting to the university police. And the university police will require a listing of those stolen items from your unit. Any of those inventoried items, then your unit must request the write-off of those items through FabWeb, and also provide our office a copy of that police report. And please, if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me or our property accounting office if you need some guidance. And with that, just wanted to list a few contacts in our office. Myself, Magdalena Yak, responsible for surplus, Ron Janowski, my new acquisition supervisor. I did want to share, Clara Wang is listed here, but Clara left our office yesterday. So my apologies, I didn't get her name and contact information off here. But in the meantime, you can reach out to me. And I'm happy to field any questions.
And Jeff, there have been some questions in the chat that have been responded to, but I don't know. I saw, Jason, you put a link in the chat. Did you want to mention that?
It's just again a hyperlink to the announcement with regards to the unit contact training and links to the materials.
Thanks, Jason. And Derek,
Yep.
did you want to mention for the group, in case some people can't see the chat, about the unit rep training?
Sure. So it's very similar to the unit contact. The unit rep training became required back in October 22, like Jeff mentioned. And yeah, that has to be completed before your USC can request the role in the SECAP. And I think shared the link in the response to you being there.
Yes. And then Jeff, one other question, is there a confirmed date for Chicago's 2025 biennial inventory?
Yeah, great question. That'll go off as the cycles always do in the same time frame. So Chicago always kicks off on July 1st and has 9 months before that March 30th deadline. So same as any year, July 1st, 2024, you can get started. Thanks.
Thanks,
And
Jeff.
yeah, you don't have to wait for that certification date. Feel free to do that the first 2 months of the cycle and be done with it. Yes, you do have an opportunity to get that done early rather than wait. And that would be great. Our office would really love that for those who have the time and desire to do that.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. So we are at the point where we will take a 5-minute break. So if everyone could be back, let's see, about 3 minutes after 2, technically, then we will get started. Thanks, everyone. Okay, I hope everyone is back from that quick break. And we are now going to hear from Laura Barnett with an update on web time entry 9X. Laura?
Thank you. And just gonna switch over. All right, so I'm Laura Barnett. I am with University Payroll and Benefits. I am the Director of Training and Performance Improvement. And I wanted to talk to you about Web Time Entry 9X. This mainly applies to individuals that are in departments that use Web Time Entry. And we'll just move forward. So we're upgrading to version 9X of Web Time Entry. Banner was upgraded to version 9 in the fall of 2018. And Banner Self-Service is now being brought up to version 9 so that we remain compatible with future versions of Banner. Web Time Entry is one of those self-service applications. The go live date, and you've probably seen communications about this already. We've been working with System Office Shared Services very closely, and they've been wonderful getting out communications almost on a weekly basis. But go live is Sunday, February 11th, 2024. This is midway during a pay period, and it's pay period biweekly 5. Time entry access is going to be closed until February 12th. So employees won't be able to enter time in Web Time Entry 8 for that first week. They're going to enter both weeks in Web Time Entry 9 as of February 12th. They'll have access to that. We are working on Web Time Entry training resources and have some posted for the units to access, the employees who will use Web Time Entry, also approvers, proxies approvers, and super users. And those resources have been communicated. We have a resource page. And why we're communicating now, we started communicating actually back in June, July, we started going to BMGs. And the reason is that this version looks significantly different. And because of the different user interface, navigation changes are happening, the step-by-steps are changing. And so people who use this application really need to acquaint themselves with it now. So it will look significantly different. In addition, the Banner self-service page is changing. And typically when you went to the application apps.uillinois.edu and you selected Banner self-service, it brought you to this screen where you would pick the application that you wanted to open. They're moving to a card format. The cards here will be, well, the screen here will be campus specific, and the cards that will appear will be those that you have access to. I have a better, clearer image of those. And so Web Time Entry will be in the employee self-service card. And we also have a link to the resource page here, which I think will be helpful as people go in for the first time. So again, a lot of the screens are changing. You had an employee main menu here. There'll be an employee dashboard. And then people will, if they are an employee, they'll select enter time here. And if they're an approver, they'll have a link to approve time here. in the employee dashboard. Proxy and super user access is a little different. A proxy and a super user would click that approve time link. And then they have to go to proxy super user link here. It's going to bring them to another page. You'll notice that you, as an approver, you would immediately have access to see where the timesheets are. For a proxy or a super user, this will be blank until they access their role. Again, this is different than the current version. And here, when they clicked on proxy super user, it brings them to this page where they can choose to act as a super user, or they can act as a proxy for someone else, then go to navigate time and leave approvals. Proxy setup is also different, and it's in the same proxy or super user page, as opposed to the link that was down at this selection criteria screen. And in version 8X, you would select the unit. If you had more than one unit, they would appear here, and the pay period for approvers. So approvers in here have a drop down where they can select a specific department. So if they have approval access for more than one timesheet organization, all of them will appear until they filter down. And you would also pick the pay period. The default is all status is not started. But one of the improvements I think I really like that you can at a glance see where the timesheets are at in their status. So you'll know how many still are in progress and have to be submitted in order to do the approvals. And in 8X, you have, once you got in, you would see the groupings. These are already available in that first screen when you log in as an approver. In 9X, and the summary format here of the timesheet, like the preview, is in a horizontal display for 8X. For 9X, it lists the dates, it lists all the earn codes and the hours. And then you also have a summary section. So you could check the summary section and that doesn't look right, look up here. You can also go to the details of the timesheet and look at more specific information, but you can approve from here too, just like you could in 8X in that preview. Here's one of the most significant changes. The grid is gone. So we now have a calendar format with the first week, second week. They navigate with arrows, the carousel arrows, and enter their time or change their time, preview, and submit. I think for people who are new to web time entry, this will be more intuitive for them rather than the grid and scrolling down to find the earn code that they need. If they have an earn code other than regular pay that they need to select, they appear in the drop down. And just like with 8X, the earn codes that are available for their employee class will be in this drop down. So we have a training resources page, a web time entry 9X resources page, and I'm gonna bring that up right now so you can see it. And you've probably seen some communications about this. So this is the resources page. We have some recorded presentations here. These go into a little more detail on how to do web time entry for these different employee types. And then there's some information here for approvers, proxies, and super users. Each one of these is around 20 minutes. We have the job aids here, and also we have some short videos that are around 3 minutes long. These two are just a little over a minute long. Well, this one's 3 minutes long, this one's a minute long. So these are some great resources for employees. I would encourage you, if you do web time entry in your department, please have your employees look at these before the 12th so that they understand how significant the changes are and can walk through the videos and the job aids before time entry. We also have a frequently asked questions section. We're probably going to divide this into employees and approvers shortly. And then I'll get back here. We will be sending out a survey this week and asking, we're sending it to employees who have web time entry access, who've been receiving these communications, and approvers and super users who've been receiving these communications, asking them for feedback on the training materials, on the presentations that they may have viewed, and we're asking them also to submit questions so that we can continue to build our FAQ. 4 questions, and we've been already fielding questions. You can, prior to go live, email obfsupbtraining@uillinois.edu. And then after go live, we would like for you to send a ticket with a title in that ticket that says WTE9X, so that it can get prioritized and to the right subject matter experts. And just to reiterate some important dates, February 11th, 2024 is go live, and time entry will not open until February 12th for biweekly 5. That applies to department time entry as well, because it's one calendar for the time entry.
Laura, we do have some questions in the chat for you.
Oh, great.
The first question is, will my current proxies work in the updated system?
Yes, nothing in your security setups and roles, your routing queues, none of that is changing. So what they have access to in 8X, they will have access to in 9X.
Perfect. And then the next question is, will employee reporting process change for time entry, or is this just for approvals?
So it is for entering and submitting time as well as approvals.
Okay. And then the last question we have so far is, have announcements about the change gone out to all employees or just the unit? We currently have employees print a PDF of the preview page to submit to their supervisor for approval. Will the new recap page be printable?
You should be able to print it from the browser. We have not tested that. And one of the things, I have not tested that, but that should not be an issue. There is a printer button on there that's for reports. They're not really reports. It gives you a graphical display of the timesheets, and there's some printing layout issues regarding that we have submitted some tickets to Lucian on. But the preview page, they should be able to print.
And then just the first question they had, have announcements about the change gone out to all employees or just the units?
We did a query against Banner against any employee whose job had web time entry as the time entry method. And so they should be receiving them And so employees, student employees that we just pulled that query at just last week. So any new student employees should get those communications as well. So they should get them.
That's all the
But-
questions we have. So sorry, I was just
And-
gonna say that's all the questions we have. So go ahead.
Yes, and we also sent out a DDH this past week, Monday, I think, and the Business and Finance News. And those communications will continue to go out. And we recently had an article, or we'll have an article in our February newsletter. So that'll explain a little bit more about some of the changes and provide some links as well. Are there any more questions?
Nope, but one of the folks who did ask a question has said thank you. So I wanted to pass that
Okay.
along too.
Thank you. And I guess I will turn it back to Ginger.
Thanks, Laura. And next up is Demuthu. I'm trying to see, is Demuthu on?
I am.
Oh, there you are. Sorry, I couldn't find you. There's 250 people here. I couldn't find you quickly. So the floor is yours. Demuthu is going to is from AITS, and he is going to provide an update on data governance. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me share my screen here. So thank you. My name is Dimuthu Talakratna. I lead the data warehouse and analytics team in system offices. What I wanted to do today was to share some information about a really brand new data strategy task force that's been chartered by Nick Jones, the Executive Vice President. I'm going to see whether the PowerPoint will let me move next. So the System Executive Risk Management Council, or Risk Council, is a group that meets regularly and they discuss institutional risks, and it has representations from the executive leadership at the system offices and the universities. For fiscal year 2024, they identified data strategy, data management, and information privacy as important areas of focus for risk as well as strategy for the university. And they said that they would like us to look at being the leader in modern data management and a data-informed culture, and also would like that discussion and the task force to use the fact that there are already a lot of activities across the system that are working on data strategy, data efforts, and to leverage that as a guiding principle. So not to duplicate or not to recreate things, but see what's happening across the system and see how we can leverage it and bring it together in a coordinated way that can benefit everybody across the system. The task force is chaired by Matt Riley, who's the CIO at UIC, Kelly Block, who's the CIO of the system, and they're working very closely with Joe Bonds, who's the Chief Digital Risks Officer, and Mairead Martin, who's the CIO at UIUC, and Tulio, who's the CIO at UIS. The executive sponsor is Nick Jones. The task force has membership from lots of folks across the entire system right now. I think I counted about 9 people. And it includes institutional research office staff, it includes data analytics people, it includes CIOs, representation from legal and others. And the data strategy task force has been charged with doing a current state assessment of where we are in terms of data capabilities, what the proposed future state might be, any actionable recommendations, the roadmap of how we would like to get there, and then think about the responsibilities of different areas and any resource gaps that we need to think about. The idea is not to limit the work to the that data task force, but to create sub teams and then bring in folks from different areas to listen to some of the challenges that folks are facing and figure out how we can work together to improve that and get to a better place. Some of the themes that we've been asked to consider are how does a data strategy help with data innovation across the university? How can we improve the data literacy? So help people work with data better and make sure that folks don't misunderstand data, and how do we enable them to analyze data better? What sort of tools would be really helpful? We have a large set of tools across the system. How do we support them and move them forward? What data frameworks are useful? How do we make sure that we are respecting the privacy of people? And how do we build that into a strategy forward? And then finally, how do we want to make sure we set up the data management and governance in place so we make it easy for people to do things? Sometimes if the processes are there, then folks have to go back and forth through email meetings to get something done. But if we can create the process through governance, then we can simplify the overall work that they need to do. This is brand new. We just started in the beginning of this year. And so we're trying to form how do we want to approach this. We've been asked to deliver a first draft by June and then a final report back in October. So it is coming up very quickly. And so I don't have a lot more details to share today, but I wanted to share this with you. And if you have thoughts or feedback about things that need to be considered and what we need to include in a data strategy, I'd love to hear. So my email address is there. And if you wouldn't mind sending me any details, I'd be happy to bring that in and discuss with the task force. Happy to answer any questions.
And I don't see anything in the chat yet. If something comes in, we can always come back to that. But thank you, Demuthu, for those timely updates. Appreciate hearing about all of that. And next up, we will hear about the upcoming business and finance website from Karen Greenwalt, Philippe Prisvish, and Derek Briles. Karen, are you starting off?
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go. But I think, Derek, do you have is that PowerPoint on you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Very good. Well, good afternoon. I'm Karen Greenwalt, and I'm Assistant Vice President for Budget and Business Operations in the Office of the CFO. And I think you both are very familiar with Derek and Philippe from the Office of Shared Services. And we're just here to provide you an update on the old OBFS website and the upcoming new business and finance website replacing it. So in the agenda today, we're going to talk about, like I said, where we're at with the project and your involvement. First of all, I want to thank you for everything that you've done so far to help us get to this point. And I think there's going to be a call for a little more review. Folks are going to have the opportunity, those who have ownership in some of the areas of the website, you'll be able to actually go in and test and look around in the new website. And today, we're also going to get to see a preview of that website and talk about where we are in the timeline for the implementation. And while I still have the floor, I want to take the opportunity to just give a shout out to Derek and Philippe. I know you've been hearing updates from them for months, if not years on this. And yes, they've been working on this the entire time. This has been a huge undertaking, and both with your assistance and of course their leadership on this, it's going to be a huge success. And I just want to also remind folks, if you may hear it again later in the presentation, that once we do go live with the website, we will have a new URL, so be prepared for that. And please also share this information with folks in your unit. And if we're missing some delivery method for getting this information out to other folks, please also let us know. And so with that, I think I will be handing it over to Derek.
Sure. Thanks, Karen. So like Karen mentioned, many of you have worked with us a lot over the past couple of years on this project. So in the first phase of it, that started back in 2020, I think. We started by reviewing a lot of peer websites, so all of the Big Ten, the California system, the Texas system, as well as some more like aspirational peers like Ivy League schools, MIT. We looked at years and years of engagement analytics from the current OBFS website. We did a lot of usability studies. So there's 2 surveys. We did probably close to 30 focus groups and individual interviews to come up with what the issues were on the current website and what the recommendations are for fixing those. So that's what got us to where we are today. So now in the second phase, that's wrapping up here in the next month or so. We've been working with anyone who owns any content on the website to inventory that content. There's over 1,300 web pages on the OBFS site right now. So we had to document all of that. We had to make sure we know who owned it. We had to update that content if it was out of date. And then we've done more user analysis, right? So we did surveys with stakeholders because we wanted to know specifically how could the website be better for you? How could it better answer people's questions so they don't have to go directly to these folks to get the answers that are probably available on the website, just hard to find. And then users. So all of the folks in the BMG groups, including this one, were invited to CAG meetings that we held once a month for, I think, 6 or 7 months, where we would give you sort of sneak peeks of what we were doing, get your feedback on it, as well as some additional usability testing. So we took all of that, built that into a coherent design, and then we started migrating that into that new design and building new pages. So I will take a moment here to show you some results of that. If I get the right page, there we go. So this is still in development. But this is what the new BusFin website will look like. So again, like Karen mentioned, it's busfin@uillinois.edu. This is what the homepage will look like. This is almost identical to what you'll see when it goes live. You won't see this content library. This is actually a tool we are using internally as our style guide to make sure that this website stays up to date and it stays consistent, and we don't fall into some bad habits that got the OBFS website as disorganized as it is today. And it's going to be organized in these 6 main categories of accounting and budgeting, buying and contracts, paying people, travel, equipment management, and payments to the university. Those are those 6 main categories, but there's a lot of other content there. There's the About section. There's a new Applications section. Forms, we'll continue having a dedicated forms section. Of course, policies and procedures will be a major component of the website. The News Center, which we've already launched the new version of as a predecessor to this website launch, and then a new Who to Ask tool that's currently under development. So just popping into one of these, so this is what you'll see on the homepage. You'll get a brief description of what's in that section, and then some quick links to the more frequently visited parts of that section. And then this is what you'll see. This is a pretty standard setup for a section of the website. So you'll see I'm in Payments to the University. Payments to the University has these 3 subsections that you can also get a description of here in the center, and then you can navigate through those. It's very similar probably to what you've been seeing on System Office websites. Been moving more to this template. So this brings the OBFS site, now the BusFin site, in line with those standards. So this is what you'll see. You'll see these sidebar boxes a lot, particularly this Who to Ask. We want to make it very easy for you to find who you need to go to when you've got questions. So you'll see this implemented all over the site. Lots of different features, particularly you'll see a lot of things like this. which that allows us to combine what used to be 4 web pages about cash handling into a single web page. Getting related resources there front and center, making it easy for you to access. We're super excited about this. There'll be more information to come. We're going to do preview sessions where we go through this in depth. But I will hand it off to Philippe now, who can give you a little bit more information about what that implementation process will look like and what opportunities you'll have to get involved yet again.
Thanks, Derek. So you've probably all seen emails about this update. You've probably visited OBFS webpage describing the status. So what you can expect next is invitation for unveiling shows. What we will do is we'll dive deeper into this very short preview that Derek just did, and we'll announce multiple events so that don't worry about missing one. There'll be plenty of opportunities for you to attend those. And those will start mid-February and will probably go for a month, where you can attend, and we'll dive deep into content sections. We'll show you the styling, the functionality. We'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. And it'll be like an unveiling of a new iPhone. You'll be able to see it, you'll be able to feel it, you'll be able to read it, but you won't get it until March 19. That's where the new BuzzFin site will go live, will be available to everyone publicly. And all of the finance applications will be there. And we will keep OBFS website temporarily available post go live. The main business and finance tool for business and finance information will be the BuzzFin website. However, we will gradually phase out OBFS website, so it will be temporarily available. If you have any bookmarks set up, you will find error 404. It will ask you to redirect to a content on business and finance website, so it will not crash for you. We are doing it so that you are able to find and bookmark the right content on a BuzzFin website. But that will gradually be, of course, we will not be updating OBFS website, so none of the information post March 19 will be relevant on OBFS website, so please don't use that. This is literally just to help technicality of redirects. So we will start gradually decommissioning OBFS website, so you will see less and less of it until it eventually just goes away entirely. So again, we will be sending additional communications about the unveiling shows. We'll be, of course, updating you on when we go live. And when we do that, please start exploring BuzzFin website, bookmark the sections that you will most likely visit on a daily basis, and feel free to start using this information for your regular transactions, because everything on a BuzzFin website starting March 19 will be updated and ready for your consumption. And if you have any questions, if you submit tickets, if you are content owners on BuzzFin website, you know who you are. You're already working with us as stakeholders. But if you notice anything incorrect, feel free to submit a ticket to us to sharedservices@uillinois.edu, and we will process these as fast as we process OBFS tickets, or even faster, because there is much less cleanup for us to do. So again, we'll be your maintenance team for the business and finance website, and we'll be ready to answer any questions you may have.
And if you don't have any immediate questions, but something comes up later, you can also send those questions into that shared services email address, and we'll get back to you that way as well.
And we'll be available to talk to you through those unveiling shows. If you wanted to have a more technical conversation, please join us, and we'll have enough time to discuss at a deeper level. All right. Thank you, Ginger. Thank you, everyone.
Yes. Thanks, Karen and Derek and Philippe. Great presentation. And now we will hear again from Philippe and Derek on the internal controls project.
Mostly Derek on this one, but thanks.
Okay.
Yes, I will take just a couple more moments of your time. So you've probably seen a lot of communications recently. So we've released a new policy, worked with Stacy in the policy office to create policy 9.1.2, and it specifically prohibits the combination of certain system roles that create a high risk of potential fraud when combined. And you can see those here, same roles we've been talking about for a couple of years now as well. But I do want you to know about some new resources that have been made available to make this process easier for you. So as this states, any employee who holds these prohibited role combinations is required to try to remove those role combinations. The answer to a conflicting role combination is not to submit an exception request, right? It's to find another way of doing the business that does not create a separation of duties risk. But we know that's not always possible, and it's specifically not possible in smaller units. So all of these resources are here to help you navigate that. So first, I would really recommend starting off here with the prohibited role combinations explained. It's going to give you all the basic information you need to know. It's also going to give you access to this role matrix that you can download, and it's going to tell you what roles can and what roles cannot be combined. A very helpful quick reference. And then the rest of this just expands upon this and gives you more information. So you can learn about that role. You can see what it can be combined with to help you make more informed decisions. We also have some suggestions for removing those prohibited role combinations. So there's some very common prohibited role combinations that can be addressed very easily. One is I by approver with FabWeb or biennial roles. That's a very easy one to fix. You simply just need to remove your I by approver and replace that with an I by executive approver. They can still have all the same approval functions in any dollar queue. They're just not able to edit a requisition. That's the only difference between the profiles. But that executive approver role can be combined with a unit rep or a unit contact role. Similarly here with like the banner department manager requester role, we see that a lot. It is almost never used, particularly at UIC. This is for creating POs directly in Banner, right? Not using iBuy. It's very seldom used. So if you have that role, I strongly encourage looking at that and seeing if you really need it. That'll fix a lot of conflicts that show up simply by removing that system access that's not often used anymore. We also provide some example scenarios of how to set up these roles in your unit, your school, your college, to not create separations of duties risks. But one important thing to note is it does always require 3 people. And that's, the burden that falls on the smaller units who might not have 3 staff members available to perform these sorts of business and administrative functions. But this does provide a couple of scenarios you can walk through to learn how to separate those roles responsibly. There's also a document here that'll provide you directions on how to use the prohibited role combinations report that we'll look at in just a second. And then there's some additional resources for USCs so they know how to pull information that's useful for business managers and making these decisions from the security application. Probably the most important component you'll find on this website is the prohibited roles combination report. So you can see there's 378 employees that are currently here. This gets updated every morning at about 7 a.m. If you show up on this report, you have a prohibited role combination that has to be removed. You can filter this, and that link to that document is here as well. Strongly encourage reading the document before just engaging with the report because there are some peculiarities you need to be aware of. So when you're filtering this data, chart and college is unique, right? Those only exist in those locations, but home ORN code is not unique. 207 can exist in more than one chart. So if you narrow this down to, let's say, chart 2, 207, and it produces a blank result, that's the best possible solution result you can get. That means in chart 2, org 207, there are no conflicting roles. And that just simply means that there are conflicting roles in org 207 in another chart. So maybe chart 1, maybe chart 4. So if you get a null result when you're filtering this report, it is good news. You don't have to worry about it. So I do recommend looking at that document about how to use the report because it's going to provide all of that information. You can download the information from this report. You don't have to engage with it through the Tableau dashboard. You can get a CSV or an Excel file and do that on your own. But definitely get out here, look at this report. Everyone who has a prohibited role combination right now is required to take action on that by the end of May. If you do not remove that conflicting role, or you do not submit an exception request to get that approved, then your access will be removed. So strongly recommend not waiting. That has to be done before the end of May, or you are at risk of losing your access. And that is the same for people who have currently approved exception requests. If you previously submitted an exception request, you do need to submit a new one before the end of May. And I am going to put that URL in there. Just been typing it out slowly as I've been talking. So yeah, definitely come here, check out the report, check out all of these resources on the homepage. They're all going to be very helpful for you. And then in those rare circumstances where there's no other solution and you have to have these prohibited role combinations, it absolutely happens. There's lots of reasons that this is justifiable. And this is where you can find information about how to submit an exception request. Please make sure to read the website very carefully. All of the information that it's giving you is information that is required for you to have before you even begin the exception request. It's going to ask for a lot of information. If you just jump in here and start clicking and go into that, you're not going to have any of the information that the form is going to ask you for. You're going to have to describe your internal financial environment. That means your purchasing procedures, your equipment management procedures, your financial reporting procedures. You will have to provide mitigating controls for what you're going to do to make sure that there is no untoward activity occurring because of this high-risk access. And you're also going to have to provide internal review procedures to let us know how those mitigating controls you're implementing are going to be followed. You'll also have to identify approvers and a unit security contact to process this request in the SecApp. But there is a recorded webinar here that provides all of the directions for how to submit a successful exception request. It walks you through the entire process from beginning to end. So feel free to watch that at your leisure. And then again, you can always reach out to us at Shared Services, and we're happy to help you through this. It's a confusing process. There's no two ways about it. And it's obviously not anything that we're terribly excited about, right? This can be a burden on, already burdened units. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're happy to provide consulting. We're happy to give you assistance submitting exception requests. You don't have to go this alone, but do please make sure to take action on it before the end of May if you are one of those folks who currently have a prohibited role combination. And that is it for internal controls. I do see a question from Tiana, and then same thing. If you are not on that report, you do not have any conflicting role combinations. That report only shows data where conflicting role combinations exist. It does not provide data on just any chart or org combination. It has to be one in which a prohibited role combination exists. So if you're not on it, Tiana, good news. You don't have to do anything.
Okay, it doesn't look like we have any more questions in the chat, but thank you, Derek. I appreciate you taking time to go through that. I know we've been talking about that for a long time, but I think we have great resources out there for folks that may be struggling or looking at this for the first time. So thanks for presenting that. Also, I would like to thank all of our presenters today. There was a wealth of information presented. And so I appreciate their time. Also, a thank you to all of the participants for coming today. We definitely appreciate your time and hope that you found the information useful. And as a reminder, you will receive a link to the recorded presentation. Our information, Bernadette is showing, is presenting now. If you need our contact information, and I see Derek put a note in the chat. Yes, don't hesitate to reach out to shared services if you need assistance. And one final comment, we hope to see you all for the next meeting, which is on March 27th. And thanks again, and have a good rest of your day, everyone.